are following some breaking news now. The president's lawyers have released a document about his tax returns and where he got his money over the last 10 years. We're going to bring in CBS Radio News reporter Stephen Portnoy to talk a little bit about this. Stephen, this is all about whether or not there's any connection between the president and Russia.
And it follows, Anne-Marie, on what the president said in his television interview yesterday to back up his claims that he had no deals in Russia. The president said he had his attorneys certify that in a letter, and it's a one-page document. It's dated March 8th, so a couple of months ago now. It says that the lawyers have reviewed his tax returns over the last decade and that those returns show he has had no income of any type from Russian sources. But the letter notes a few exceptions. He mentioned these yesterday in his interview, and they include the Miss Universe pageant he put on in Moscow in 2013 and a property he sold to a Russian billionaire in 2008. There's also a mention of the possibility that hotels were rented out or that the rounds of golf and books and products with Mr. Trump's name on it. But he says, the letter says that the amounts regarding that would be immaterial. So the point that the lawyers are trying to make in this letter, which the president released today, is that there is no documented evidence, according to these lawyers, in the president's tax returns of any income of any type from Russian sources.
Yeah, Steve, that's what I think the important word is here, is that these are his lawyers. They're people that have been paid by Donald Trump for the last decade that are coming out and releasing this information. Is this going to be good enough, not only for reporters, but for the American people to say, oh, yeah, okay, there's no ties to Russia?
Oh, I'm sure it's not going to be enough, and there's no way to verify whether the claims in this letter are true. This is something that the president says he's doing. Essentially, he said it in his interview yesterday, to certify, to put to rest any doubt. The only way that the doubts would be put to rest, frankly, is for the president to release what his attorneys have reviewed the last 10 years or more of his tax returns. The letter, by the way, is co-authored by Sherry Dillon. You may remember that before the president took office, he had a news conference at Trump Tower in New York, and they had a big stack of papers that was prepared by the president's tax lawyer, Sherry Dillon. She actually came out and said that the president was going to remove himself from the operations of his businesses and all this. It's the same lawyer who's co-authored this note.
Yeah, we do remember her. Jamie and I were talking about that earlier, and we were also talking about this. It says in this document that the president holds interest or is a sole principal owner of more than 500 separate entities.
Right. So if there are these, immaterial amounts from ordinary sales transactions, you're talking about a number of transactions that could have occurred. They just weren't big enough to maybe make the document.
Yeah, and also the amount of research it would take to follow up on every name, every corporation, figure out whether or not those corporations have roots in Russia or not. It would be quite a task.
Oh, and that's a point that the attorneys actually make in this letter. They say such income would not have separately been identified as Russian in your books, Mr. Trump, and therefore they wouldn't be separately reflected on your tax returns. And yet they say it would be an immaterial amount in the aggregate. They wouldn't be in the tens of millions of dollars, let's say, and that's, for example, the items that are listed here. It was $12.2 million from the Miss Universe pageant, and then there was the property in Florida that the president sold in 2008, which was for $95 million. And so I guess that the point they're trying to make is if there were Russian individuals who rented out hotel rooms or bought, Trump steaks or, Trump ties, that it wouldn't be that much money, I guess is the point they're trying to make. But the bottom line is the questions won't cease until or unless the president releases his tax returns. He has indicated in interviews this week that he might not do that until or after he leaves office.
Yeah, indeed. I think the president probably had this letter released in the hopes of silencing critics, but now there may be even more questions to ask.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Stephen Portnoy. We appreciate your time. Want to remind